feel like neurotypical people will be like, what do you mean you have a hard time setting or keeping appointments or doing this thing that seems like really basic um, to them? But as we know, there are so many internal factors that can throw us off, distract us, and even give us specifically anxiety about doing things that to other people seem really basic. Things like spending money on our own selves, things like taking care of our own health, mental or physical, um, dental care, buying skincare products and hair care products, like stuff like that. Like it can absolutely give people anxiety. People can have a really hard time doing these basic things and basic because there's so much going on in our subconscious or even sometimes in our conscious mind that is stopping us from doing these things that should be done. And so it's almost like there are times for me whenever I feel like if I could just be a robot about this, then I would get it done. If I would stop being a human about it, because my human mind is what is messing with me. But of course, we have to talk about the beauty of having emotions and empathy and, you know, complex cognitive functioning and things like that. But unfortunately, it also can affect us in a pretty negative way. Overthinking or, um, you know, being triggered by things. And one interesting thing that I want to say about triggers, and I know I've said it before, but as someone who does struggle with mental illnesses, triggers are not always a specific action or they don't make you have sometimes a specific verbal reaction or physical reaction. Well, okay, I'm about to negate what I just said in terms of physical reaction, but what I mean is that when you are in a certain situation, it could prompt your body or your emotions to respond, and it's below your conscious level of thoughts. At least that's my experience. I'm not speaking as a medical professional. I'm just speaking as like to my experience and the experience of people who have said that they can somewhat relate to what I go through. So, for instance, if you were, say there's something about you physiologically that was not taken care of when you were a child, when you were growing up. Whenever you're an adult, it's like you have like a surface level understanding because you've seen how other people live their lives or you've seen it on TV or whatever. You know that there are things that you need to do that are practical. But whenever it comes time to either plan for that thing or do that thing, your body is like extremely tense, or you procrastinate, you put it off, and you're like, oh, it's like, if you were thinking of it consciously, you would probably say to yourself, well, it's not, I'll get around to it. Like, I don't know. It's just not really like a top priority. Well, maybe it is, but like, like you would have this weird feeling if you didn't understand it of like, for some reason, it's really hard for me to do this thing. And one thing that I am learning, and it's crazy to say that I'm still learning these things whenever I am already well into adulthood, but one of the things that I am learning is about the emotional abuse that I went through for pretty much my entire upbringing. And I'm only now realizing that some of the things that I experienced that to me were normal day-to-day things were emotional abuse. I've already sorted out that I was financially abused. That's one thing, like from the time that I was a teenager until I said in my 20s that I was going to cut the adults in my life off from basically giving them my money. And by the way, my money at that time was pretty much loans, like was coming from loans. I got also like conned into, for the purposes of like being more spiritual or being like whatever, being a better person religiously in the religious organization that I was a part of. Like I was I don't want to say necessarily like coerced, but maybe that is the right word, into spending $300 that I didn't have on a trip to go out of state. And I put it on a credit card, and I tanked my credit as a young person. I think I was 18 years old when this happened, or maybe I was 19. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, somewhere in the period between like 18 and 20 years old, is when I went through some pretty bad things financially, but also like grew up financially, started to learn about what is financial abuse, started to learn about like people pressuring you into doing things that you're not comfortable with. And yeah, I tanked my credit score in the meantime, because the people I had around me were exploiting me financially. And so, like, what are you going to do? Like, we are not just born with this knowledge of, intricate financial topics and things like that. So, I guess the point is that under our level of conscious awareness, there are things operating in our body, in our subconscious, in our emotions that are steering us in a certain way. And sometimes it requires a little bit of shadow work, or sometimes it requires something that's actually very easy, very simple, and it's so simple and it's so straightforward that we don't think to do it. But literally, sometimes we just need to be asked the right question. We can ask ourselves, like, hold on a minute. Why do I feel bad about this thing? That's a pretty simple question, but the answer might not be simple at all. The answer might shock you. I was doing work on my self-worth and understanding like why I was possibly subconsciously blocking myself from wealth financially. And of course, like I already mentioned, I was being exploited financially from the age of 15 up through probably about 20 or 21 years old, maybe somewhere around there. So the very like beginning years of when I actually was making money. And that is like one factor, but another factor went way back before that to what my first experiences with money were. And that is another simple question. What were your first experiences with money as a child? Or what do you remember about money from your childhood? And then to take it a step further, after you ask that question to yourself, if you've never asked yourself that, then you might want to say, how did that make you feel back then? You can also analyze how do you feel about it right now. And this applies to not only financial matters, but this applies to everything. But how did you feel about it back then? Looking back on these memories that you're now recalling, and how do you feel about it now? And the reason I suggest asking both of those questions is that you may find that your inner child is still holding on to the things that they felt back then. Not everything, and everything doesn't look the same, but I'll give an example. I remember a time that for me shaped me and I didn't even realize it, where I was with other kids and the other kids' parents were buying something for them, and I wanted that as well. This is not an expensive thing. It was literally, it was candy. And I wanted to have a piece of candy, and I couldn't have one because I didn't have a parent who could afford it. And I internalized that as I'm not worth as much as these kids. I don't deserve as much as those kids do. And so that might translate into something like, and this isn't relevant for me at this like point in my life, but if I was like a big car person, it would be like, maybe I'm seeing other people with cars that I really like, and then I would be thinking on the inside, like, I don't deserve to drive that type of car. Like, and I would feel some jealousy, or maybe I would feel like less than. Maybe my instant reaction, if I had not uncovered any of these things, would be when I see those people enjoying the thing that I wish that I had, maybe my instant reaction is I just start feeling sad, or I just start feeling like bad about myself, and I don't understand why until I ask these questions. How did I feel back then? Additionally, this is how we save ourselves. This is how we fix it. How do I feel about that right now? And one of the things that I noticed for myself when I analyze this is if I walk through what I could do as an adult if I saw the same situation happening, and I understood all of the dynamics of it the way that I do now in retrospect of what my situation was, then I imagine an adult, me as an adult, going up to this young child, me as a child, and saying to her, what you have, what you hold in your hand, what you put in a bag at the store, does not define your worthiness as a person. You are so beautiful, and you deserve all of the candy in the world, but you don't need all the candy in the world. It wouldn't be good for you to have this because you also deserve to have a healthy body. Just obviously this is not something that is going to resonate probably with a lot of very young children, but that's not the point. The point is not like, what would I do if I saw, this happening in a grocery store now that I'm an adult? No, it's not about like that. Because you can't know, the dynamics of what's happening in that child's head, right? So what it really is about is reparenting myself, going back in time and looking at that girl. And, I like to sort of visualize or kind of close my eyes and feel what it would feel like if I put myself right back in that situation. I'm there and I'm feeling bad about myself and I'm feeling like I don't deserve good things. And then this amazing adult me, who I don't know is me, comes in, gives me a big hug, and says, here, you can have the candy, but I want you to understand that it doesn't matter what you have. You are worthy on the inside, no matter what, So it's just little things like that personally I use to reparent myself. It's very helpful. It's very healthy. And this is a way that I can uncover some of the triggers that I don't even understand that I have. But if you have something like that in your life, and this can be any arena of life, I know it shows up a lot in romantic relationships, if that's something that applies to you. It shows up in finances, it shows up in careers, it shows up in parenting. There's not one single aspect of your life that you can look at and say, there's no possible way I could be triggered by something in that category. So if there is something that brings up emotions in you that you don't understand and you maybe don't like, then ask yourself, what is it about this that I don't like? Or what am I feeling? Sometimes the full answer is within you. It's already in you. You already know the full answer. It's just that you don't consciously know it. It's just below your conscious awareness. And so all you have to do is ask yourself some questions to bring it up. And I do think that some people would call it like shadow work. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly, but I do know that anytime that I've done a practice or like listened to someone talk about shadow work or give exercises for shadow work, I absolutely love them. I find them deeply healing. Um, just anything that can uncover our programming that is running in the background all of the time, unbeknownst to us. Super, super helpful.